يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون واعتصموا بحبل الله جميعا ولا تفرقوا واذكروا نعمة الله عليكم إذ كنتم أعداء فألف بين قلوبكم فأصبحتم بنعمته إخوانا وكنتم على شفا حفرة من النار فأنقذكم منها كذلك يبين الله لكم آياته لعلكم تهتدون ولتكن منكم أمة يدعون إلى الخير ويأمرون بالمعروف وينهون عن المنكر وأولئك هم المفلحون ولا تكونوا كالذين تفرقوا واختلفوا من بعد ما جاءهم البينات وأولئك لهم عذاب عظيم يوم تبيض وجوه وتسود وجوه فأما الذين اسودت وجوههم أكفرتم بعد إيمانكم فذوقوا العذاب بما كنتم تكفرون وأما الذين ابيضت وجوههم ففي رحمة الله هم فيها خالدون تلك آيات الله نتلوها عليك بالحق وما الله يريد ظلما للعالمين ولله ما في السماوات وما في الأرض وإلى الله ترجع الأمور. So now let's begin with our lecture.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. Assalamu alaikum everyone. It's been a few weeks to miss you guys. I've heard a lot of good about Brother Omar, so I'm sorry you guys stuck with me this week. So inshallah, I know you guys are talking about things in regards to Seerah. And he left off on a certain point. Let me just go somewhere over here. The last point that was being mentioned, we'll talk about that before, inshallah, we go on to the next point. So he basically talked about Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam's integrity and his honesty from what I'm hearing. So the specific thing that he was mentioning was, here, that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam embarked on the first business trip to Syria and successfully returned with multiplied prophets. By prophets, we don't mean messenger of Allah, we mean the narrow. Right? So he came back with multiplied prophets. Not only was the Prophet ﷺ inherently blessed in all his actions, but his honesty and his integrity undoubtedly contributed to his success. So even before we look into this, I just want to go over why exactly it is very simple, very redundant, in regards to why we're mentioning the Seerah. Right? The Seerah serves not just only as entertainment, but it serves as lessons as well. You know, as we talked about in the numerous series, we mentioned that these things, we mentioned these stories, we mentioned these actions, we mentioned these points, not just as, for entertainment or for, someone to the masjid. It's meant as a way to learn. It's meant as a lesson for us to apply to our lives. Example, how should we act? Who should we follow? It's very hard to dictate who these people are nowadays in our lives. You have all kinds of skewed morals, all kinds of skewed mindsets, a bunch of different things. So it's hard to know exactly who it is that we follow, right? Of course, the obvious answer being Rasulullah, following his actions, but a little bit, if you guys are smart, so you guys know that. So this is why it's important that we look at his life, we look at the actions that he did, and we look at the way that he went about these actions. They're not aliens, they're still humans. So they had interactions that we will probably have in our lives as well. Things as simple as, okay, what happens if you don't like someone and they're coming up to you? What What happens if you run into someone that you got a little bit of beef with? Or what happens if it's someone that that plays you in a business, or whatever it is? There's a bunch of different things that happen. And those things that happen were not always included to the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. These things still happen now. So the best of examples is the example of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Understood? Hence why we look at the Seerah, why there's a lot of emphasis on the Seerah, and first and foremost is our Prophet. So we should learn about him, Why is it that he cried for us? This develops a love which in and of itself is a source of reward, giving salawat to Rasulullah, sending your blessings, all these things, all this afkar that we talk about, and the Quran is mentioned as well. All these things, learning as to why there's so much emphasis around this topic. So, all the things that Brother mentioned is all going to reward him immensely. It makes my job a lot easier. So, the Prophet embarked on that trade, that business to Syria, came back with both my prophets. First and foremost, the fact that he's a prophet of Allah resulted in the fact that he was going to be successful, right? Now, not to mention that, of course, the prophets of Allah go through trials and tribulations. Everyone has their own. Look at the example of Prophet Yusuf, look at the example of Prophet Yunus, look at the example of all the prophets, Adam, Musa, right? The pharaohs after him, the Quran, his whole family threw into the fire, all these different things, right? So this is why, they have their own trials and tribulations, but they still have that extra, blessing due to the fact that they are prophets of God, Allah, and Rasulullah is no exception to this rule. So that's first and foremost. But for those of you who have any sort of business, for those of you that have any sort of public dealing, you know that integrity will give you credibility. Make sense? If I, for example, want to open up a business where I want to work with someone, right? I have people, for example, let's say there's someone that I know, but I'm iffy about how they are. Right? I'm not too sure if they're trustworthy. Or it could be someone that, I don't know, but everyone says is trustworthy. That person probably going to do it is going to be the one that's trustworthy. So integrity and his honesty was a very, very, very crucial thing in his character. It was a very big thing in all his endeavors in life. It was a very big thing. It was a very big character statement, or pun intended. It was a very big thing in his life. And this integrity, honesty, carried on to numerous things, right? But in this, we're talking about his business trip to Syria. So not only the blessing from Allah, but the fact his honesty and his integrity resulted in increased profits, as in money, right? Came back, whatever goods was, multiplied on his way back. And back then, they didn't have paper currency, they had goods. So he came back with multiplied profits, right? Now, this was where it was left off last time. This kind of transitions us into humility. And we talked about this in the previous series as well, that humility is something that we should follow. And this is a lot of these things were present in the interactions of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. His humility and how humble he was, it's a part of Allah. But there was a few things that we wanted to talk about. First of all, the seal of prophethood, we know this, right? But the more important thing that we wanted to talk about, and this is, subhanAllah, when you look at this hadith, it's such an obvious thing. It's a very obvious thing. But none of us pay attention to it. None of us think about this. So it's one thing that we reflect on, so I want to pay attention to this. Abu Hurairah reported, the Prophet said, Allah did not send any prophet, but that he cared for sheep. Meaning he was a shepherd. Thank you. No prophet was sent unless no prophet was sent except that they were shepherds. The companions asked, and you as well, right? This is a very common thing. The prophets will ask, when the companions would ask the prophet, are you guys, are you an exception to this rule? The last prophet is still a prophet. For example, the thing that comes to mind is the one where they asked him that no one enters Jannah without them. No one enters Jannah except with the. No. Who said that? Oh, okay. I can't see you, but that's right. No one enters Jannah without the mercy of Allah. The companions asked him, "Ya Rasulullah," and said, "Even me." Same thing over here. So he asked, and the companions asked him, "You as well?" And Rasulullah said, "Yes, I was a shepherd with a honest wage on behalf of the people of." So he was a shepherd with a modest wage on behalf of the people of Mecca. And there's numerous explanations to this, but the one that's pretty much to sum it up is the fact that this was not a coincidence. This was not a coincidence. The fact that prophets were sent of this nation of shepherds. Can anyone give me a wild guess as to why? Any wild guess as to why prophets were sent as shepherds? Okay, brainstorm a little bit. Yes. Okay. Good, I like the answer. What was the only for that, but that's a good answer.
The flock,
Like to take care of? Good. You're getting there. It's a good. It's a nice step forward. You can actually think outside of the box a lot. Maybe that or I'm just tired. But that's a good answer. And also, shepherd as an occupation is just a humble thing. It's hard to be a shepherd and be arrogant. Think about it. If someone is good, it's hard to be a shepherd and be arrogant at the same time. For example, when you think of someone that's flamboyant, someone that's showing off, someone that all these things, who do you think of? Someone with wealth, someone that has all the cars in the house, whatever it is you name it, can have it. This is what typically comes to our minds. Things or individuals that are well off. But being a shepherd necessitates humility and contentment. It is hard. It's not a simple job. It's a hard job that requires manual labor. It's also very mentally, it takes a toll mentally on an individual as well. And minimal, that's a big word, remunerations. Basically meaning that you do a lot more and you get not much in return. It's a more laborious job. It's a job that requires a lot of physical effort. It's a job that you do a lot physically, however, in return, there's not much in comparison to other things. For example, individuals, they may have had jobs back then, or if you look at now, for example, if someone's a shepherd now, they have a farm, a lot of manual labor, a lot of taking care of the animals, a lot of cleaning up, a lot of this, a lot of food, whatever it is, a million different tasks. But you see that these individuals, if you think of a farmer, for example, which is very close to a shepherd, if not the same, you see that these individuals live a very modest life. They're not flamboyant in the way they act. They're not showing off because there's not much to show off. So this is not a coincidence that these individuals were brought as such, right? So there was no excuse for them to be humble and have humility in their actions. The mandate of prophets in this role provides an important lesson in our understanding of honor and nobility. It teaches that we should be proud and happy to earn money with our own hands to feed our families and communities, just as the prophets before us did. And this is the beauty behind it as well. I don't know if you guys know about Thomas advice. Thomas sees something, so you see the Thomas advice. Basically talking about hadith that are pretty much applicable to any time and era, right? And this is one very important thing as well. Who is the best example to follow? The example of? Perfect. Now, let's put that aside for a second. Let's look at us nowadays in our modern times, right? Not everyone is a billionaire. Not everyone's a millionaire. Not everyone's going to have Lambos, Ferraris, houses, mansions, watches, no, right? There's going to be some individuals who will not have the best of life. There will be some individuals who, when they see a loaf of bread, they'll be more than happy. There's some individuals who will have to live paycheck to paycheck. There will be some individuals who live in the middle class, where they have everything they need, but they don't live lavish. Then there will be some individuals who will probably still have mattress made of money, right? There is a wide range of things or people that are in this world. There is no shame. And look at the example of what this is the best of individuals, right? The best of people who ever come. Yes or no? And this individual is still working a humble job. Do not take three hands out and hand out to other people. Do not rely on his mobility to be a means for him to look things for people, right? Of course, this is completely against what Islam says, but look at nowadays. Individuals who get a little bit of notoriety, no name from nothing, who get a little bit of fame, who get a little bit of whatever it is, they start opening up all these things, right? They start, milking money from this person, from that community, from this community, start doing this, doing that, and the third, right? What happens is their intent changes, and they think this nobility of theirs is a means for them to do whatever it is they want and kind of get them out of whatever trouble it is. They feel obviously above the law. That nobility rather, becomes a means or a thought process. Okay, I'm noble, and everyone loves me, and I'm this, I'm that, and the third. Let me do something like this. Let me take advantage of this person. Because people's hearts, as we were talking about himself, their hearts are extremely big. And they do anything it is for the sake of Allah and the cause of Allah and for the Muslim Ummah, period, right? And individuals who have this attitude will then go and do this. So number one, there's nobility, they're not getting the means of him being arrogant. There was no arrogance, it was only nothing but humility. So he did not use his nobility as a means to take advantage of people, number one. Number two, him being such a great individual, he still was extremely humble in the way he lived his life, obvious, but at the same time, he had no shame in what he did for work. He used his hands to provide for his family. Now let's see if we can apply to us. Whatever it is that you do, as long as your means of living is halal, number one. Number two, your means of living is honest. And your means of living is what? Of course, you do your obligatory, as you're giving charity, do this, that, and third. But as long as you have halal income, doesn't matter what the numbers show, there will be barakah in it, number one. And number two, there's absolutely no shames. Because that money that you have, or whatever wealth it is that you have, whatever assets it is that you have, none of this will what? Come with you to the grave. You hear this all the time. None of this will play any benefit. What you did as a result of having this will play a very big part. Well, okay, this person, he had all the millions in the world. But you know what? He didn't give for the sake of Allah. Right? But there's an individual who didn't have too much, and he gave $1, $2. But this was as much as he could give. This is better in the eyes of Allah. So what you do as a result of it, that's what counts, not what you actually have. So there be humility and nobility in their actions, and the fact that all the prophets or shepherds is not a coincidence. There is wisdom behind this. And this is a bit of a sidetrack, but anything and everything it is that Allah does, there is wisdom behind it. There is some sort of explanation behind it. Right? Number one, our Lord told us to do something. Our Lord did something, or decreed for something to happen. This is enough of a reason for us to be happy with it, to be satisfied with it. But if explanation is required to perhaps increase inclination, for example, why is it that we pray? Why is it that we fast? Why is it that we give zakat? Why is it this, that, and the third? As long as our Lord told us to do so, enough of a reason. But if you need an explanation, no problem. Look at over here. This is something so small, no problem for shepherds. How many of us do this beforehand? Hands up. Right? There's more people that didn't know what that actually they did know. So everything has an explanation, and this is the beauty behind what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does. So that brings us on to our next point, right? His integrity and his honesty and his nobility, all of these character traits resulted in him being liked by everyone. Right? And there's a reason why I'm going to mention this. Now, to clarify, we don't do things for people. Talk about this every lesson. I'll keep talking about it until I depart from earth. Everything should be done for the sake of Allah. Let's get that out of the way. But being a prophet of Allah, the fact that he had a message to spread, the fact that people actually like him, played a very big part in it as well. If I sit here and you guys despise me, you hate me, for I don't know what I'm meeting with you guys on the album. Fixing enough, right? Enjoy. So let's say I have an issue with you guys. Everything I say right now, nothing is going to go into your head. Nothing is going to sit in your brains. Everything I'm going to say you're going to ignore because you hate me. Right? But if you know, for example, that the individual who's giving the talk, he's honorable, not honorable, he's trustworthy, tolerate him, might even was with him, whatever the case is. Whatever he says will have more credibility to you. Whatever he says, you'll think about it more. Whatever he says will hold more value in your head. So, this brings on to our next one. For examples of how Rasulullah was loved. Alright? And we'll talk about the stories and the examples and we'll move on to the lessons behind it. One of the tribes, so this was when it came to the placement of the black stone on the Kaaba. You know the black stone? Right? That stone, that, by the way, that's a little popular time. Probably used to kiss, very big thing. What's the back to the rubber for a mention? Right? Very big, so all the people pushing everything, right? That thing, where everyone's fighting for their lives. I'm not quite sure how much afterwards, but one of the tribes made a secret pledge. So the tribe decided which tribe is one that gets the pledge. The black stone onto this. Beni Khuzah made a secret pledge that they would fight to the death before backing out. So this is how, they were just firing up, right? Nowadays you hear this is different because everyone's soft, but I want to be the one. Our tribe wants to be the one that places the black stone because number one, it's a very big thing, right? This is the Baytullah. This is one of the biggest houses of worship, one of the sacred sites in Islam. I want our tribe to be the one that puts the black stone on. So they said they were going to fight to the death. There's no way backing down, right? We're going to be the ones that do it. Next, what happens is, they even dip their hands in blood to sign this pledge as okay, my allegiance to this tribe, that I'm going to make sure I go vouch for my tribe. I'm going to whatever it is to get to be the ones that put on the black stone. On the fifth day, one of the companions, the oldest person, or this individual was the oldest person alive in Mecca. He put a stop to this madness and forbade any further fighting. The oldest person, because again, Islam respects elders, right? Now this is very important when you respect the elders. The elder, the oldest person alive in Mecca at that time, right? What happened was he said, "This is ridiculous. You guys are saying I'm going to fight to the death. You guys are all Muslims. We're all for one cause for Allah. You guys want to kill each other because it doesn't make sense. This is madness. And you put an end to it." And he suggested that they simply allocate the honor to the first person who enters through the door. Right? So he left it up in the air. You know what? I'm not going to decide. You're not going to decide. He's not going to decide. Whoever walks in, right? There's different narrations. Some say whoever walks in the Kaaba. Whoever walks in, they left up the chains. Whoever walks in, they're going to have the honor of putting on the black stone to the Kaaba. Guess who it was? Who was it? Perfect. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He was the one that walked into the door. Both tribes, right, were cheering. Everyone started cheering upon seeing that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam walked in. Why? Someone give me a reason why. Based off of what we've been talking about. What was the reason that everyone started cheering? Close. Whatever verse was it? I mentioned people. There you go. That's simple. Everyone loved him. This individual was loved by all. He was popular with Allah, but even his character, right? He was loved by all. So they were happy with this individual being the one that put the maximum on. Now, proceeding forward, both tribes cheered upon seeing the Prophet walk in. His integrity was recognized so much that it did not matter to them which tribe he belonged to. He placed the black stone in a garment, and then what did he do? Based off of his integrity, based off of this common theme of him being fair to everyone, can someone give me or what they think happened in regards to what did he do? Think about it. So he was the one that was chosen to put the black stone on the Kaaba, right? What was the decision that he made? So he was the one that decided to go through with it, to give it to someone else. Perfect. He allowed all the tribes to come together and pray. Instead of fighting over who's going to do it, because again, it's human nature. I don't want to work with this person to do it. I want to be the one to do it. No one wants to share credit. No one wants to be, okay, no, I want to, be the one that does it with this person. No, I want to be that guy. I want to be him as a thing, So they want to be the main person to do it. They don't really care about sharing that credit with anyone else. So he decides for all the tribes, the leaders to come together and go on and put this on. This goes to show his integrity. First of all, we go back to our original point. He could have chosen to do it because I am the prophet of Allah, right? Not me, the Prophet. He said, I am the prophet of Allah. I am the one that decides I'm going to put it on, right? He could have done that, yes or no? But they cheered when they saw him walk in. They didn't know who was going to tell everyone to do it. He decided, out of fairness, to have everyone included, to make it inclusive, I'm going to decide that everyone comes together and does it. This is how his integrity, his ability, and how honest he was, and how welcoming he was to everyone. If anyone has a right, and I mentioned this before too, if anyone has a right to be arrogant, or to boast, or to have something to be proud about, it is Rasulullah. This is the messenger of Allah. But yet still, despite having the best honor in the world, this individual still did not let it get in the way of him being humble. His humility came first and foremost. And his honesty and his fairness. He chose for everyone to come together. Right? No fighting, no bickering, no arguing, no killing, no nothing. We're all Muslims. We're all here for one cause. We'll come together and do it. Not only does that finish any escalation of issues, but at the same time that results in the Ummah becoming stronger. If everyone comes together, follows the command of Rasulullah, think about it in that time frame. Everyone comes together, they follow the commands of Rasulullah. Do you think they'll be arguing in front of him? No. The companions wouldn't dare raise their voices in front of him, let alone fight. So the fact that he was able to bring together, this is the example that we follow, and this was the effect that his honesty and his integrity had. So we'll go on to another example about something, right? Once the Prophet ﷺ gathered people of Quraysh around the Safa Mount, And he asked them, O people of Quraysh, if I say that from behind this mountain an army is advancing on you, will you believe me or not? All replied, yes, Prophet, we shall assume you, basically believe you, because we have never heard you telling a lie. Everyone in Mecca believed in his honesty and truthfulness without any exception, and he had lived a pious and unblemished life among them for 40 years. Basically he said, if I told you that, regardless of whether or not there is or there isn't, if I told you that there was behind this mountain, there is an army coming for you, this is not a small thing. You know the example of the boy who cried wolf, right? Eventually gets whatever it was, right? This is a very big thing, So if I stood on this mountain, because they have to start packing up, start fighting, would you go check all these things? They said, if I told you, would you guys believe it or would you guys go check whatever it was? Or would you simply take it at face value? They said, if you told us this, we wouldn't believe it because we have never seen you tell a lie. Right? Now, very simple example, very simple story. The point stands that whatever came out of his mouth, no one had to second guess it. And the beauty behind this is that even those individuals who hated him, despised him, hurt him physically and mentally, whatever it was, they still had no choice but to believe him in terms of his honesty. Those individuals that hurled insults at him, that hurted him, that did all these things, none of them ever questioned his truthfulness. No one ever questioned his biasness. They just didn't like what he was talking about. Perhaps be it that they lived their whole lives according to a certain way. It's human nature. If I tell you guys to drop a habit, alright? Perhaps it's cursing, or whatever the case is. If I tell you to drop that habit, it's not going to happen overnight. And it's human nature, once again, to make excuses for oneself. Oh, you know what? A curse by forgive, or no, it's not a curse, or no, this and that. No. You start making excuses for yourself. No, you guys, there with me. So it's human nature to feel insulted if someone is coming and out of nowhere telling you, you know what you're doing is wrong. You have to change your whole way of life, your whole way of living. So some individuals may have been upset at that. Some individuals, perhaps, look at the example of Musa and Fir'aun, right? This guy was not coming and telling him that you're not God. Allah was different. And this individual had all of Egypt in his palm, telling him that I'm your God. This individual now coming and spreading a message completely opposite of what he's been telling people. Of course he's going to get mad, right? Counterintuitive to what he's been saying. So whatever reason it was that individuals may have been mad at Rasulullah, being a tribal thing, a tribal thing as well, consideration of this tribe and the third, right? Or out of jealousy as well. Because sometimes when someone sees someone who's noble, who's honest, who's has integrity, they feel some sort of way. Because it's human nature to want those compliments, those praises. So whatever reason it was that people disliked Rasulullah, right? Whether it was whatever, they never, ever, even if they despised him, they hurt him, they went to the extent of harming him physically, right? Verbal is different. They say something, whatever, they say something, whatever, right? They would say something, they actually hurt him. But what? No one ever questioned his biases, and no one ever questioned him being truthful. This was out of the door. That's how honest he was. That those that believed opposite of what the message he was giving, they still had to admit that he was truthful. This is the example that we have to follow. Think about it, a moment of self-reflection. If you were to say something to someone, right, and be honest with yourselves, just keep this in your mind between you and yourself. If you were to say something, or if someone were to say, okay, I want someone to hold X, Y, and Z amount of money, or I want someone to be entrusted with this amount, how many people would come running to you? How many people would trust you to do so? How many people would actually say, you know what, let me give it to the man, this person, or that person? How many people will believe something that comes out of your mouth? If you were to say something ridiculous but it's true, how many people would actually believe you? Right? What kind of trust do you have? What kind of trust have you set? And if the answer is yes, is it because people like you, or is it because you're acting truthful? Or you're taking advantage of this relation you have with people? And this example I'm giving of being truthful, are you actually a truthful individual? Do you spread lies? Do you instigate things? Do you follow the example opposite of what Rasulullah did? All these things we should reflect on ourselves. Because of the example of Rasulullah. Those that hated him, they still had to believe he was truthful. Right? No one ever questioned his integrity. They just questioned the fact of his message of religiosity in terms of what he's saying. Or in terms of, he's getting all these people, I don't want this to be happening because he might revolt against us. Really different things, never his integrity. That brings us to another story, inshallah. The letter to the case of Rome. Once Prophet sent a letter to one of the leaders of Rome inviting him to Islam. When the Caesar of Rome received the letter, he called the Arabs who were then visiting his country. Caesar called them and asked about Abu Sufyan, their head of that group. Before his claim to prophethood, did you ever hear Prophet Muhammad, or he said, did you ever hear Muhammad telling a lie? He replied, no. Basically, the Arabs are at Rome at that time, who went to Rome. They were called by the leader of the Roman Empire at that time. When Rasulullah sent a letter to the leader in regards to an invitation to Islam. Very common word about Islam. He brought the Muslims at the time, and that group of Muslims that was there, he brought the leader of the Sufyan, right? And asked them, have you, before his prophethood, meaning, okay, he became prophet, whatever, afterwards he's an amazing person. Before his prophethood, have you ever heard Muhammad telling a lie? He replied, no. The Caesar then said, I asked you about his truthfulness, and you replied that he is truthful. If he spoke unfairly against Allah, he would not have abstained from speaking falsely against human beings. The Caesar of Rome then asked about his behavior and conduct with general people. Abu Sufyan said, he has never broken a pledge. The Prophet ﷺ is nobly born and truthful and honest. He calls his followers to worship and to pray, and worship Allah, and to pray for him alone, meaning to Allah. He preaches purity, tolerance, and kindness. Right? Honesty descended from the heavens and settled the roots of the heart of man, and then Quran was revealed and learned from the saying and tradition, both the Quran and tradition strengthened their honesty. Basically saying that the case of Rome said, I asked you about his truthfulness, and you replied that he is truthful. And if he spoke fairly against Allah, he would not have abstained from speaking falsely against human beings. Basically, he gave everyone his due rights. And the question continues in regards to never making a pledge, and that he preaches. And this is, again, not a coincidence, right? He preaches what? Purity, tolerance, and kindness. Purity, kindness, and tolerance. Three things that are extremely simple, right? He's not telling us to go do this and that, and radical this and that, no. Three simple things. This is the beauty behind Islam. A simple religion, not meant to be difficult, not meant to be a burden. And at the same time, he has never broken a pledge. And this is one thing that I want to focus on, which is very important. He has never broken a pledge, right? And the pledge doesn't necessarily mean that, of course in this case it might be pledge in terms of written, because he was talking about leaders, but he had never broken a promise as well. Now why is that I mentioned this specific? This is a thing that comes with integrity. If someone says, yeah bro, you know what, I'm going to figure this out for you. If you trust someone, for example, let's say someone is able to get something done, or for example, someone owes you, or you owe someone example money, right? Let's say you're out with your boys, and you grab something, you're $5 short. You tell your boy, you know what? If anyone has any news, just send it right now. See everyone reaching for the doors. Let's say you owe your boy $5, right? You went out to eat your $5 short, he sponsors $5, right? Tell him, yo, I got you tomorrow, inshallah. I'm not sending you money. Tomorrow passes by, Wednesday passes by, Thursday passes by. You completely forget about it, right? And that's it. You never give it back. Your integrity right there is hindered. You're questionable now. You know what? Next time you ask him $5, it's out of that one. He's not going to be inclined to give it to you. Why? You're not going to see this going on. So, you know what? You're not going to be able to, or he's not going to want to give it to you. The idea now applies to anything. For example, someone needs help with something, right? And they call you, you know what? Yeah, bro, I'm going to be there tomorrow at 9 a.m. I'm going to help you out with whatever it is. You call them at 9 a.m. and they're snoring. They're nowhere to be found. Oh yeah, bro, my bad. I would have sent my alarm there. This is the actions, or these are the things. I got talked after you guys are laughing. I got talked. It's not good, man. So, wow, love overslept, whatever. Overslept, a million different excuses. These things, or these actions, are what hinder individuals' integrity and their truthfulness, right? You gave them a promise, you have to fulfill that promise now. You got to make ends meet. And forget about even making ends meet. Do the courtesy of extending or telling that person, yo, I'm not able to make it today. That's something that comes under mannerisms as well. The fact that an individual is not only able to not fulfill that promise, at the same time they're not able to extend the courtesy of letting a person know, hey, my bad, I can't make it. All these things, your integrity is hindered, your truthfulness is hindered, and your reliance on an individual, you're not relying on anymore because they don't know if you're going to come through it. Rasulullah, if he said that he was going to do something, he did it. And there's another hadith that says that never a person came to Rasulullah that he didn't help them or he gave them something. Meaning if someone came to him seeking help, Rasulullah, if someone came to him in regards to advice, or if someone came to him in terms of monetary help. Whatever it was, he would figure out a way to do it. Now, us as humans are not special. We have very limited capabilities. We still do whatever we can in our best, ability. But at the same time, we don't ever disrespect someone. We don't ever say a promise. If you know you cannot fulfill a promise, you say, I can't do it. And rather than send that expectation that you can. The example of Rasulullah is different. He had the blessing of Allah more than, may Allah grant his blessings at all. He was a prophet of God. It's a different story, right? But never a person came to him for help that he didn't give him help. Never a person came to him for something that he wasn't able to give him something in return. Advice, monetary help, whatever it was always there. So number one, if you can fulfill a promise, right? Amazing, go through with it. Make sure that you do whatever it is that you can to make ends meet for that promise, right? If I know I can do it and I give my word, you have to follow through on your word. It doesn't matter if some circumstances come up, you make it happen. Because you gave that individual your word. God forbid you aren't able to do so. What happens? You at least extend the courtesy of letting the person know, hey, I'm not able to do this. I'm sorry. X, Y, Z circumstance happened. I'll try to arrange something for you. Help that person out with finding someone else, or at least just give them a heads up, plain and simple. And lastly, if you know you can fulfill a promise, make that promise. But if you know, okay, I'm bluffing this entire time, I'm giving a promise to someone, and in your mind, in that moment, you know you can't fulfill that promise, do not make that promise. For you will eventually make a pledge or a promise that you're going to break. And this is extremely untruthful. So making sure we follow the example of Rasulullah, as he did with making sure that he came through with his promise, he never broke a pledge, and he was never, ever lying. First of all, we know the severity of lying, that whoever lies is not promised. That's what Rasulullah said, right? Paraphrase the hadith, but that was the meaning. He said the severity behind lies. And lies are the root for a lot of sins. Let's say there's a big issue going on and I lie about something, right? I lie to one person and that person goes and says, no, let's see what happened. And I have to go lie to that person and then my lie spreads to another person. It's the root of sins. Stay away from lying, right? That's number one. Number two, the beauty behind it as well is that if you say the truth for the sake of Allah, yes, you may see some sort of harshness from parents, for example, or from your teacher, whatever it is. You may see some sort of severity, I guess you want to call it, in the moment, time being, right? But in reality, what happens is down the road, that truthfulness is going to play some sort of benefit. I'll give you an example, right? See a lot of youngsters that I see mom and daughters and fathers and sons, all these things, right? Father and child, whatever, parent and child, right? If you lie to your parents about something, first of all, that's a sin in itself. Typically speaking, I don't know what it is. Parents have a sixth sense, they know when their kids lying, right? So what happens is, mom's looking at you right over there, right? So the parents are going to know, not only did you lie, not only did that lie not help you, but at the same time, what happens is you get even more trouble. Right? So all those negatives come with lying. Now when it comes to being truthful, the truth always prevails. Let's keep that in mind. If I say something to my parents, right? And if I say something truthful to anyone, that individual, even if they're mad at me for telling them the truth, what happens is the fact that I told them the truth, that's going to have some sort of respect. And they counteract that anger that they have. So that truthfulness will come in handy for you. You tell your parents the truth, they may yell at you right now, but what happens is, hey, you know what? At least my child told the truth, and then anger will be wiped away. So any parents that are here, just go and get these kind of things, right? So the last story is one that I don't know this. As a person came to Rasulullah and said, O Messenger of Allah, I have numerous bad practices. Which one of them should I give up first? And guess what it is? Surprise, surprise. Rasulullah said, give up speaking lies first and always speak the truth. The man promised to do so and went home. At night, the man was about to steal, but he thought about the promise he made to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He said, if tomorrow Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam asks me where I have been, what shall I say? Shall I say that I went out sinning? No, I cannot say that, but nor can I lie. If I tell the truth, everyone will start hating me and calling me a thief, and I will be punished for stealing. So the man decided to not steal that night and gave up his bad habit of stealing. The next day, he felt like drinking alcohol. Right? When he was about to do so, he said to himself, what shall I say to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam? If he asks me what I was doing during the day, I cannot lie to him. And if I speak the truth, people will hate me, because a Muslim is not allowed to drink alcohol. So he gave up the idea of drinking alcohol. Lesson or point being in the story, that one lie or one action of stopping lies resulted in lies stopping, surprise. At the same time, it resulted in what? Him stopping himself from committing theft. And the third thing was he stopped himself from drinking alcohol. This is not a coincidence. It goes to show that lying can be the root cause. That lying was enabling him to do other bad actions. That lying enabled him to go do this thing. Whatever, I'm just about to do it. That lie, that one sin enabled him to do others. But that prevention of that one sin prevented him from doing others as well. And this is not a coincidence. It's not a coincidence that Rasulullah in numerous hadith and numerous situations advised us to stop lying. First and foremost, this is his sunnah. It's the action that he performed. It's the action that he did. He wouldn't lie because it's something that's unintegral from the blood. It's not, there's no integrity in it. It's not truthfulness because it's going to be the opposite. And at the same time, we would lose any credibility that he has. He had a message to spread. And people knew that he was lying, anything that came out of his mouth would have no value. So number one, it's a commandment from Allah. Number two, Rasulullah did it. And number three, is going to help you to stay away from sins in general. It may seem like exaggeration. It may seem like, okay, you know what, it's not really going to affect you. Trust me, practice and you'll find out. See these things. Follow the example of Rasulullah with the intention of doing it because Rasulullah did it, and you'll see the benefit that it brings to you. So, long story short, we can go on and on and on and on and on about it. The point being, follow the examples of being integral, adding truthfulness, staying away from lying. One small thing, right? And again, it's different nowadays because we have rules and laws and this and that and the third. And there's already wars, things of this nature. This is back then, all empires, all civilizations, right? Now with rules, things are different, But back then, if people, were able to hurt an individual physically without consequence, whatever it was, they were able to do so much more harsh things than we can now, right? Maybe that's for our benefit as well. But the fact that yet still his truthfulness and his piousness and his integrity was never questioned, this should go to show you how we should be, right? Look at us in a day and age where people, they just despise everyone. This person lied, that person lied, this person doesn't know his promise, this person, he's always capping, as we say, So whatever it is, all these things that, that hinder one's integrity. So follow the example of Rasulullah. Go out of your way for it as well. And this is advice in general. Go out of your way for the deen. Go out of your way to do good. For the sake of Allah. If you have to help someone, but it requires you to go extremely out of your way, go ahead and do it. I guarantee you there will be some sort of barakah in it, right? No action goes unaccounted for. Allah will reward you for your extra effort. So don't do anything or think, oh, you know what, I'll put this out of my way. No. Go out of your way to do good, and go out of your way to stop yourself from doing bad. Look at the example of Rasulullah, to the point where no one could track even a single lie, because he never told one. To the point where, forget about the da'wah that he was doing, forget about the millions of people that were converted because of him. His truthfulness was enough of a reason where some people converted. That's how honest he was. Can we think of anyone that they're so honest that we change our whole lifestyle because of them? No. Because it's not bound to be anyway. It's so easy to lie nowadays. Things are so easy to conceal. Social media, all these things, right? What being? Follow the integrity. Follow the truthfulness. Go out of your way to stop sinning. Go out of your way for stopping to do bad. And go out of your way to do good. And that will not only give you credibility, but that will just increase your quality of life. Plain and simple. No one wants to be called a liar. No one wants to be that dude that won't talk shit. No one wants to be that guy. Annoying one, right? So make sure that you follow the example of Rasulullah in humility, in integrity, and in truthfulness. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept from us and to allow us to apply everything that we learn. We'll take some questions, inshallah, if there are any. And we'll go from there. Sorry.
So, what?
I said, sorry to move the house.
Oh, that's okay. So you talked about the practicality of limiting lies and the importance of the enforcement of rules. But given that we have a legal system in the U.S., or at least in New York, but legal systems are also notorious for having loopholes and basically hosting a place that manifests people to lie for the reason of self-preservation. So while lying is in itself a sin, would you argue that with the presence of an exploitative system of law, whether it be at the criminal level or at the international level, that kind of forces a Muslim, or that kind of forces someone who's being, persecuted to lie, even if the law doesn't necessarily make it so.
Okay, so that's a very subjective question as well. It's a very subjective thing as well, because there's case-by-case scenario. So I'll give you an example, right? For example, let's say a Muslim stole, right? Now he has to lie to get himself out of jail. You shouldn't have stolen in the first place.
Yeah, but it's even more complex than that because.
For example, give me an example.
Because so مثلا the crime of stealing is a crime, right?
Yeah.
But okay, I can win the air page. But what if a Muslim like so everyone has a family to support and whatnot.
Right.
What if the crime of stealing was committed because somebody didn't necessarily have the funds to say feed their family for the night and someone was about to die and they would have died had the Muslim not stolen from X person, right? So at surface value, stealing is a sin, you shouldn't have done it.
Correct.
But morally and ethically speaking, if I hadn't stolen that amount of money,
Yeah.
X amount of money, then I wouldn't have been able to feed my family. So I indirectly contributed to their death because stealing that amount of money would have led me to support them. Right? So it's really complicated because there are a lot of social contracts in society, but we also kind of have to realize that like as like during the Rasul's time, things were a lot more simpler. Obviously, like the Ummah, they had someone of the utmost morality to like use as a guide rail. But now, like in modern times, you know, you also said it yourself, social media is oversaturated.
Right.
So a lot of the messages that we have as a Muslim Ummah are also oversaturated. So how can we as a Muslim Ummah, who is kind of going through this new era with, you know, social media and digitization of society, also have clear-cut guidelines as to what's right and what's wrong?
Perfect. So objective and subjective, two things, right? Let's look at objective first and foremost. You give the example of social media, right?
Right.
Or laws in general. Okay, I know that. So when it comes to social media, I'll give the example of sin, right? Now the subjective part of it would be, look, you have in New York, right? You have a bunch of different things. Stealing would be the absolute last case resort, last case resort. First and foremost, trusting in Allah and nothing just like Allah, right? But there's a will, there's a way. So if an individual wants to do something, or let's say their family's dying and they need help with something, I'm sure they can go to someone and ask, right? They're surely be resorted to. There has to be someone in the society, one person that paid to extend that arm, right? That's number one. Number two, in New York subjectively, there's a lot of things, for example, pantries, every other corner has a pantry, every other store there's a deli on the corner, you go to the guy, tell me I can fix some money, but my kids done, right? So I'm sure they'll extend that courtesy, number one. Number two. Number three is objectively speaking, for example, when it comes to social media, right? We shouldn't play, victim, or we shouldn't fall victim to the things that social media shows or the things that are being created, right? Of course, we have to abide by the laws that are in this land, that Islam says that as well. But what comes before us? Our nationality, our American law, or Islamic law? Perfect, right? So there is nothing that will be in Islamic law that will contradict American law, for example, right? And if there is something that contradicts it, for example, if there's a little bit of a loophole, if the loophole is present, it doesn't have to take advantage of it, right? I should be, for example, we gave the example, let's say someone has to go to court for stealing, right? Let's talk about subjectively in this day and age, right? I don't have to resort to stealing. Of course, there may be a case in which that happens. You would have to speak to someone that's more, knowledgeable in Sharia when it comes to situations of this manner. But subjectively speaking, if someone is in New York, right, and they have no food, no nothing, they can go 100%. The Masjid itself probably has pantries, the Masjid has pantry every store, whatever it is, there's something, a shelter somewhere, right? Now, stealing would be the last resort option, right? Now that they have to stole, they can tell them whatever it was, or whatever the reason was. But they should have followed what Islam says first and foremost. Number two, those loopholes being present doesn't mean that an individual has to take advantage of them, right? For example, this alcohol is halal in New York, right? It's the whole world can get alcohol. But just because it's there doesn't mean that I have to eat it or I have to drink it. Pork, for example, is everywhere. It's present everywhere. But just because it's there doesn't mean I have to take advantage of it. In fact, halal and fitna is everywhere doesn't mean that I have to partake in it. Is it easy to stop it? No. But I know my Islamic law comes before any of this comes first, right? Or society norms as well. For example, premarital relations. Those are normal things nowadays. It's not an issue, right? But I don't care about what society says, I care about what Islam says, right? So in order for us to kind of navigate through, okay, you know what, there's all these loopholes, there's so much problem going on around us, or all of the things, you stick to what Islam says first, and this should be behind it as well. And Allah, it's not me telling you, it's what's on you. You follow the way Allah says to do things, the Rasul says to do things, and you prioritize Islam, everything else will fall into place. Now, if some circumstances come up, that's to be dictated, we can't sit here and go over every scenario, but that comes down to what the scenario dictates, or what the circumstances were in that scenario. But typically speaking, if it's a circumstance where an individual has no choice, then Islamically it is forgiven by Allah, and of course subjective. But speaking first and foremost, the way to navigate this is you just prioritize Islam. And typically speaking, most people, more often than not, the successful route will be the one that Islam says, and the successful route will not contradict what Islam says. Meaning, whatever the way to get to success, the It's most likely to be aligning with what Islam says.
Okay, let's say you're a hijabi in France,
Correct.
right? And the hijab is obviously banned in schools
Correct.
and higher education,
That's a good example, yeah.
right? So your instinct is to go based on Islam, show up to school in a hijab, but then you get demonized for doing that because you're technically not following the law of the land, the law of France,
Correct.
right? So on that aspect, like Muslim women are constantly faced with the dilemma of should I like follow the laws of Islam or should I follow the laws of the land? Because essentially, if you follow the laws, and I'm not like justifying this, I'm just like explaining the dilemma.
Yeah.
So the dilemma present is that like if you show up to school with it and have abaya on, right, you risk being released from that school because you're violating the laws of the land. But if I follow the laws of the land, then I'm disappointing Allah because by choosing to wear the hijab, I'm kind of devoting myself of this life commitment, and I'm kind of like dishonoring it by following the laws of the land. So it's like you choose A or B, you're violating one or the other. And like, and we all know that seeking knowledge is also like an act of jihad. It's also an act of worship. So it's like
it's hard. It's a bit of a pill.
Yeah, but it's not only this or that, but it's also do I violate my own jihad and just wear hijab, or do I not wear hijab and do I abide by my jihad?
Again, this is more of a Sharia thing. Someone that will be more well versed in Sharia will tell you and what the decision will be to make. But I will say from this standpoint that look, life, like for example, was all the prophets that came before. I'm pretty sure they went through things of similar nature or things that were being ridiculed. So that they had like a target that goes on with that. But yet they still chose to do what Islam said. Now, I can't sit here and tell the women in France, follow what Islam says, that would be my advice, but of course it's easier said than done, right? Because if I were in that situation, I don't know what I would do, So first and foremost, follow what Islam says. My counter argument to that would be, for example, homeschooling, right? Which I'll have to go there, again, easier said than done, but this is just like, an example. Follow what Islam says, and it is your form of jihad. Think of it as a source of hasanat, and try to find the needs out of it, right? Again, easier said than done. I must preface by saying that. People, our parents, they came from back countries to another country, Maybe it's more difficult, but I'm sure there's a way to do so. Number two, follow what Islam says. If I'm not mistaken, Islam, the hijab, and the abaya is banned in schools, not outside. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, I was just talking
Yeah, exactly. So an individual can then homeschool the child, that's a very responsibility. Or there could be someone, I'm sure, I know in Europe, about people that have homeschool available for other people, to bring their kids. That could be an option. Easier said than done, but that would be a scenario to go about it. Personally, right, Islam comes first. And in a case like this, as counterintuitive as it may be, and as hard, because it's not really becoming hard on practicing Allah, right, practicing Islam. Follow what Islam says, and then let everything else fall into place. But again, the more detailed answer would be from someone that's more well-versed in Sharia, but technically speaking, there's a lot of things going to it. Prioritize what Islam says. And as this is a test from Allah, this is your jihad, right? There's no wars and things nowadays. The jihad would be, okay, I'm being told to remove my headscarf, I'm being told to remove my thing that's my Islamic identity. Do I go through with that? Or do I drop that, whatever it is, and I follow what my Lord told me to do so? And following the decision of your Lord is going to have a lot of fun. So that would be my counter to that, When it comes to that specific ruling in regards to the rule of the land and Islam and contradictions, that would be a more Sharia-based thing, which becomes more, pinpoint and more specific to that. But objective and subjective, the objective thing would be prioritize Islam. And this is your form of jihad, and this is your form of struggle, and if this is your source of reward, the Lord will handle it with this. Okay?
Thank you.
Gotcha. Any other questions? Now I'll speak to a Sheikh that's more Sharia knowledgeable, and I'll get into the rest of that specifically. Yeah. Yeah. All right, so that's a very good question. Let me pull up the exact hadith that mentions that. So backbiting is, let's say for example, I'm in a gathering, right? And I have someone saying, okay, you know what, listen, we're talking about life, sports, NBA. I don't know if you see this one or not. We're MMA, UFC. This is what that comes up 21st, so watch it, right? But I'm sitting down where, you saw what the men's, we're like, well, the men's were good. This is backbiting. No reason, no nothing. But it is, there are some situations in which a Muslim is allowed to backbite, if you want to call it. It's not really backbiting. I'll give you an example, right? For, let's say, boys, right? I'm going to put you on the spot, right? You and Ois are boys. And you know that I'm going to come hurt Ois. I'm not going to, right? For example, right? Let's say, I'm out for him. I see him, I'm jumping, right? If you know that I'm going to come harm him, it is your responsibility to go and tell him, oh, bro, my friend's going to do this. That's not backbiting, right? You're basically looking out for him, number one. Number two, an example. You've done business, so we've been talking about business and the source of them, right? So let's say that okay, me and Ois, right? Ois and me are going to do business, and I'm not the best. I'll use myself as an example, right? I'm not the best business partner. The best is money. But man does this and that and the third, you wouldn't do it personally. You should go, and if he asks you, you should tell him, hey, you know what? I don't need to backbite, but look, I was in the business with him, and he did X, Y, and Z. So I advise you against doing your on-premise technology with that information as you want. So if it's just for the purpose of just talking, just to talk, right? Or just to have a conversation start, then it's not allowed. But the reasons for giving or to backbite, right? It's not really considered backbiting. The situations that permissible are things of that nature. When you're looking out for someone, advising someone, letting someone know something, which with regards to the character to look out for an individual. Make sense? Because at that point, you're not doing it just to do it or to complain. You're doing it, okay, you know what? This person did something to me. Or for example, there's a teacher, right? Those are the younger. Or someone did you wrong. You have to go with the dean and tell them. That's not backbiting. You're filing a complaint. These things they're not backbiting. These things are just, you're doing as you should. So to speak, these things are moral, When it comes to, okay, you guys are sitting around and you're making fun of someone, and then you go ahead and do this. Right over here it says, so complain. When somebody complain, is to go to a judge, to go to a ruler, someone of authority that's able to mediate a situation, that will not come under things that are backbiting, right? Seeking help to change people or bring the sinner back to the right path so that you may stay to the one who helps so and so is doing such and such, tell them not to do it, right? For example, me and Ois, right? Me and Ois are good friends, right? I'm doing something wrong, you tell Ois, the man was doing this, and since you're close to him, you should advise him to not do it. Because you may not, I may not be close, so you never are close, so you can come to him to come tell me, hey, do this, because his words may help him out. Make sense? That's number two. Number three is seeking advice or a fatwa, right? By saying to the scholar, hey, so my father X, Y, Z does this. If me and Ois will do something wrong, or I'm doing something wrong, Ois will go to the sheikh, and I'm going to use you and I as an example. I'm doing something wrong, Ois goes to the sheikh, hey, my friend was doing this. Is it the best course of action? If my friend was doing this, I want to tell them, please tell me, right? You don't have to say their name, you don't have to say anything, or you can just say, I saw someone doing this. But this would not be considered backbiting. Warning the Muslim of someone's evil. Like I said, fine. Jumping, if they are, watch out. Not jumping. I think you're safety, right? But that would be an example of not backbiting. If a person openly commits evil or follows bid'ah, such as drinking alcohol, it is permissible to speak of what he's doing openly, but it's not permissible to speak against him in any other way, unless it is for another reason, right? Basically saying, look, someone was doing this, my boy doing this. But if it's not open, it's public, because that individual having reward for concealing the sin. And lastly, more identification. If someone is known by anything such as a dim-sighted one, or a blind man, or one eye, or lame one, it is permissible to identify him as such, but it's haram to mention that by the way backbiting. For example, let's say, I'm a bit taller. So, the man, the tall one, as compared to, the man the broken one, and those broken. So, the one, he's a little broken, no, that's backbiting. But hey, the man, the tall one, that's not backbiting. You're just using a characteristic of mine to identify me, so that way it's perhaps easy for someone to recall. So these 6 scenarios would not come under backbiting. However, it seems like they're talking about an individual, but the intent isn't malicious. The intent isn't to instigate. The intent isn't to just talk about this person. The intent is it serves some sort of purpose, So these case scenarios would not be considered backbiting. My recommendation also is that if you're unsure about something, and this is hadith of Rasulullah, that leave something that which you doubt, right? Paraphrase, but if you're doubtful about something, for example, hey, I should say this, Okay, I know for sure that's not backbiting, go ahead and say it. But if you're not sure whether it is or it isn't, it's better to stay away from it. Make sense? And that's also the word for you as well. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Not good? Yes, sir. Should be watched for you. No. So this is where what she mentioned about loopholes. This is where that comes in, right? Someone, for example, let's say you've committed a sin, right? Yeah, the scholars say it's better to try to find a way to word it where you're not saying either or. You don't want to lie. It's a negative and negative, positive. Well, so for example, I asked you, hey, let's say you asked me, when you smoke. No, I don't want to smoke. Someone else, right? Hey, you smoke. Someone says, Allah's protecting me from this. What does that mean? The big value seems like someone's saying, they don't do it. But maybe that person repented and they asked Allah to stop doing that sin. Allah protected them. You see what I'm saying? So try to find a way to avoid that question. Whatever it is, it's best number one to conceal it. There's no such thing as that where you go to someone and you confess your sins and you forget. No. Do as, conceal your sins, Allah's hidden them, keep them hidden, number one. Number two, if someone asks about them, that person is kind of looking for asking you, not gonna lie, right? Shouldn't be asking about your sins. But let's say that does come up, right? And what do? Try to find a way to kind of word it where it's ambiguous. You don't know if you did it or not. Try to way to word it in a way where it kind of beats around the bush. That the person you ask them, then walk away. Or door is going. So just try to avoid that question, but the best thing is to conceal it and then word it in a way where it's, you don't really get an answer, Allah protected me, or after that, I stay away from this. Maybe that person may have done the sin, for example, right? And they ask you forgiveness, it's not doing it. No, I stay away from this. That technically still hiding your sin, and you're not lying either, right? So this is the way to approach it, because you're not supposed to confess your sin, that the same way you're not supposed to lie. You're not supposed to do either or negative, and then after that you leave it being Allah knows best. That's what's one of the allow us to implement everything we learn. We ask God to make our lives better, right? And we ask us to allow us to become better Muslims, to apply everything we've learned, and to grant them for those who better than has done for something I've done. For what he has to do, present my pen.